Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the AI Files, your ultimate destination for staying updated on all things artificial intelligence. We dive into the latest developments in the AI world, sharing insights from the corporate landscape. We also bring on expert guests to provide their unique perspective. You can find us in Apple Podcasts as well as YouTube channels. If you're serious about keeping up with the fast paced world of AI and want to integrate its advancements into your career and company, then this is a podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain, co host of the AI Files. I'm the director of data and AI at Microsoft with over 22 years of experience in the analytics and AI field.
And I'm Jamie Basilico, co-host of the AI Files. As a data and AI technical specialist and architect, I bring over 35 years of expertise in data-related and AI domains, having worked with many Fortune 500 companies throughout my career. Please note, this is not an official Microsoft channel. The views and opinions expressed by the co-host are their own and do not represent the views of Microsoft. Let's dive in. So from the last time that we spoke, there's been a lot of additional announcements from Microsoft since the Microsoft Build conference was just held recently, depending upon when you're listening to this episode. It was either last week or maybe 3 months ago. But like I said, a wealth of information that was discussed at the Build conference. We're going to start off with a couple of the key ones. There was literally over 100 different announcements, everything from new PCs to how to work with SharePoint and where artificial intelligence is embedded within that. We obviously don't have enough time to cover all those, but we're going to cover a couple of at least the key things that Shadab and I feel are most important to everybody that's watching or listening to this episode. So I'm going to start out with the OpenAI models. Obviously, the big news at Build was the announcement and release of GPT-4o. Again, that's the latest Omni model from OpenAI. It is now available, still in preview, but it's now available through the Azure AI Studio, as well as being able to use it from a development perspective with the API calls. The other thing that was, at least in my opinion, a big announcement was the ability to fine-tune GPT-4. Again, that's the largest of models. That is in preview right now. We're not going to get into why you may want to fine-tune. Just remember, it's a very expensive and very complex undertaking, but at least it's now available more than just the GPT 3.5. The other thing that I wanted to point out that is now generally available is the Assistants API. Again, this has been something that's been in preview for several months already, but it is now available to everyone to use in production. So that's big news.
Hey, Jamie, about the GPT-4 Omni, I just wanted to add, there was recently a controversy about the voice of Scarlett Johansson being used, apparently, but
Yeah.
which obviously the Sam Altman denied that, no, it was not. If you watch the movie Her, you realize that it's not just about the voice. The potential of GPT-4 Omni is exactly that, actually. And that is why there are similarities and parallel being drawn with the movie Her, because it is exactly like that how the GPT-4 Omni potentially could be. And that movie, remember, was released in 2013. So I think, who knows, maybe that was the actually motivation behind the LLMs or all these agents, etc. But that, I think, that also reminded me, and I thought about the whole controversy about OpenAI has clearly said that it was some other voice artist that was used. It was not a misuse of Scarlett Johansson voice. The question is, however, if the voices are similar, is it legit or not? And I don't know. It's, I mean, if somebody's voice is just
I,
resembles somebody
I mean,
else's, it's illegal, right?
yeah, I mean, my perspective on that, if it's exactly the same and they used, Scarlett Johansson or any quote unquote famous person and used their exact voice to train, then I think that's a legal issue. But if something sounds similar, I mean, someone could record something that sounds similar to me. I don't know. I don't think that is a legal aspect. I think
Yeah.
there's other things that we have to think about. It's all right. Hey, there's, like you said, there's this application and it seems similar. And what are we going to do as it interacts with different people? But just because a voice sounds similar to somebody else, I don't know if that has any legal merit or ground, because I think every company would be in the legal hot seat for
Yeah.
every and every single little voice that was out there. So I don't know.
Exactly. Somebody's voice will resemble somebody in the world, to be honest, right?
Right.
So there could always be a
Like
controversy like that.
where
And
does it end? Right.
yeah, exactly. And I that's what I thought, that okay, I mean, it seems fully legal to me. There was nothing. I think the controversy is really about because of that message that Sam Altman sent about,
I
and
was
he
just
referred to movie Her. And
yeah.
I think that is where people thought that, okay, is he trying to draw the similarity with the Scarlett Johansson voice? But in my view, it is not the voice. It is the potential that he was drawing a similarity with, right? Because if you see the movie Her, and if you see the potential of GPT-4 Omnis, all those videos out there, then you can imagine they can they are on the path of becoming what was in the movie Her. I think that's where the whole the controversy arose. But I think it was a little bit like too much
Yeah.
about it. It's not a matter of legality. It was just, I think, a little bit of misunderstanding, I believe.
Yeah. I would agree. To me, it's more important about what the technology is rather than all these. I'm going to kind of call it distractions along the way.
Yeah.
That kind of takes away from the real advances in what these things could do. Anyway.
Yeah, and I think the distractions are good in a way, because what they allow is they allow actually a discourse on these kind of subjects, and touching upon, and as a society people debate about, okay, what is legal, what is not, and all acceptability. I think it is good. In my view, I think these issues need to, but every issue need to be constructively used to debate and create an outcome out of it. So let's see.
Yeah.
Um,
So there had to be more things than just Scarlett Johansson's voice. So what do you have for us as it relates to build? There are some new things there.
Oh yeah, one of the things that I'm really was actually thrilled about was, I think this whole announcement about the Microsoft Copilot Plus PC, and
Yeah.
particularly because I also actually I am a I use both the Microsoft devices, of course, as well as the Apple devices fairly easily. Because of my past experience working with both, I have a few Surface, and I'm thrilled about this device because so far we have been using all these LLMs and all these models, but they're more like apps on the cloud and things like that. But now the native capability of these models on the device, so that you don't have to be connected, it gives a whole new perspective, right? The privacy and security, etc. as well. So you can be completely disconnected and yet use the AI capability. So that's very thrilling. The whole Copilot PS Plus PC that Microsoft announced, and it will be available on the Surface devices as well as through the other partners as well.
Right. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think these, I'm going to call it AI powered machines, are going to be super critical as time progresses. Everybody's machine are going to have the capabilities over time to be able to do AI related tasks. And to me, other than the announcement of what these Copilot PCs are and the hardware that those things run on, which I know we'll talk about in a second, but it's about the unique experiences that I think is the big headline, at least for me, for what these Copilot PCs can do. Um, One of those capabilities is something called recall, which, let me explain it first, then I'll talk about at least what I think may be a little bit of controversy around it. Recall sounds like what it is. It recalls anything and everything that you do on the machine. How does it do it? It literally takes screenshots every, I think it's every minute or every 10 seconds, somewhere. It's a small interval. But what this allows it to do on the machine is build this index of information, and it's stored locally on the machine. So these snapshots, quote unquote, the images, are things that are going to align with how you work. Now, that means the sites that you visit, the code that you write, the images that you design, and PowerPoints that you create, and anything and everything in between. So here's where the controversy comes in. It's sort of like Big Brother then looking over your shoulders. The nice thing I could say, and I've done a little bit of reading on this, is that you can remove elements within that timeline, and you could, pause that recall. But ultimately, what this does is with all those images and with the capability of having these AI processors now on these machines, you're going to be able to run AI multimodal models on your Copilot PC that will leverage this recall, these snapshot images. So just think about what that can actually bring to you as a quote unquote consumer, as a creator. You'll be able to create new things because the machine is just going to understand. And by leveraging these multimodal models that are on the machine, that's going to provide so much more capability to you. Now, again, like I said, you've got Big Brother potentially looking over your shoulders, depending upon how you feel about that. That might be a different show that we can get into it. But yeah, I think of this recall as a great advancement in how we start to use these AI models on our direct machines.
I completely agree, and I was, I think, to be honest, stunned that this was possible so early, because every week, and this is a general statistic that people spend about 30% of their time in the week just searching for information, okay, on the workday. So I think this kind of ability to search from the description and not having to rely on remembering specific keywords, etc., I think game changing. Honestly, it will be a next milestone for the productivity enhancement, because honestly this happens pretty much every week for me. I can recall I've seen this slide, I swear, somewhere, but I
Where
just
was
can't
it? Yeah.
find it. And it's sometimes so difficult, honestly, sometimes so difficult. So I'm actually very, very stunned that this is the AI is happening, honestly, far more earlier, at a far more rapid pace than we can actually imagine. So I'm thrilled about this. Have you booked your PC already, Copilot Plus, Jamie?
I
I'm
have
actually thrilled. I'm ready to book it and wait for
I,
it.
I have not. I know they're taking pre-ordering, and I guess that's the other thing too. There's these first initial Copilot PCs are supposed to be shipping later on in June, so just in a couple of short weeks. So it'll be very interesting to see once people get their hands on it and can report back how recall works. By the way, there's two other things in these Copilot PCs. We won't get in depth of it, but there's a co-creator which helps to generate AI images and refines those images, but it does it all locally on the device. And then there's also something called live captions, which will translate various different audio files into English from some 40 odd plus languages. So again, all these AI based things being done directly within a disconnected PC because you have those capabilities right on the PC itself.
Like, for example, people can actually use a live caption to translate our own podcast into other languages locally and understand.
I
Uh,
guess so. Yeah.
that would be thrilling, actually, honestly. I'm so excited about this. The other important thing about, in terms of the hardware in advancement on this, Jamie, which has made this possible, is actually Microsoft kind of like taking a little bit segue with the Snapdragon processors, right, rather than the Intel processors. So I think they're also experimenting, because I think these new chips, which they call it NPUs, it's basically neural processing unit compared to the GPUs or the CPUs of the past. So just a quick thing, right? I mean, the CPUs, of course, were the standard, and the GPUs came along, and they were really good. They were specialized for actually processing the images and the graphics, etc. As well as, I think, the way they process the information also is more like a graph. So I think that kind of, like, that's why the GPUs have become so popular, and they're being used heavily in the AI training, etc. But this NPU is actually a little bit more specialized chip, which is specifically designed to actually the process the neural network, basically the architecture of the LLM. So that's why they are very suited for the AI. So they're purposely built for the AI powered machine like the Copilot Plus PC. And by the way, this is like the processing is amazing, 45 tops, which is trillion operations per second. Think about it, 45 trillion operations per second. Where are we heading? This is like supercomputer at your home.
It's so true. I mean, it's the advancements that are happening in hardware are really accelerating and making possible the things that we could do, with AI. I kind of chuckle because I go back to my days when I first started tinkering with programming, and I was doing it on a Commodore 64. And, I think we were lucky to get, 16K RAM in that thing. And now we're talking about, hardware that can do trillions of operations in a second. It's just mind boggling when you think back to it. But
That is true.
but anyway, I want to jump to another topic that came out from Build, and that's around small language models, specifically talking about 5.3. So it's not just that we made the announcement of the ability for 5.3 small and medium being generally available, but there was a new model, or new 5.3 model, and that's 5.3 Vision. So literally bringing the capabilities of multimodal experiences, in terms of using images as part of input in addition to text, but now that's done within a small language model. And you could maybe take some, you could maybe tie this together. I don't know the exact model that's going to be used underneath the covers within the Copilot Plus PCs, but I would be opt to say that it's probably one of these 5.3 models. But when you think about now, what is the family of the 5.3? We've got 5.3 Vision. That one's a 4.2 billion parameter multimodal model. Again, that has language and vision capabilities wrapped into it. And then we have the non-multimodal, that's 5.3 Mini, which is a 3.8 billion parameter language model that comes in two different flavors. Actually, the next three come in a 128K context window, as well as a 4K. And then, like I mentioned, there's the small and medium. The small is a 7 billion parameter, and the medium is a 14 billion parameter. So again, these pale in comparison in terms of the number of parameters, let's say that like GPT-4 has, which is measured in the trillions of parameters. But these are very capable models that can do a lot, especially when you think about this very directed use and how that could be leveraged, especially things like on device. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
And I'm going to talk about later a little bit more about how these SLMs are becoming so powerful, and they are already being put to the use. Um, SLMs are very, very promising, and we'll continue to talk more about them. What next, Jimmy? I also heard about something on the Copilot AI agents as well.
yeah. So I don't know how many people have been following along with the Copilot Studio, but these are Copilot Studio are ways that you can build interactive agents. Think about the old Power Virtual Agents, building a chatbot, but these Copilot AI agents now are enabling you to build really the first class citizens around agents themselves. So these are where you can actually build some independent orchestration tasks that are tailored to do specific functions or roles. So think about this as the ability to, let's say, build a workflow that an email message comes in, and I want to be able to automatically route that, align that with some AI to build a response that could build an email, then send that out to teams, and then maybe generate a calendar invite that goes out to everybody. I could stitch that all together through these Copilot agents. So within Copilot Studio, I could start to now create these agent-based capabilities. And again, these are things that are will be coming out over the next couple of months, but this was one of the big announcements at Build.
Great. And not to ignore, but extremely important that the responsible AI part of the AI is always important. And I was happy to see some of the announcements on that part aspect as well. So, for example, the prompt shields. That's actually like a feature where it allows you to detect and block prompt injection attacks, which are becoming actually a area of concern, right? Where because you're dealing with the natural language prompt, somebody can actually pass within the garb of the text also the prompts, right? And that could become a problem. So prompt injection attacks are an area of concern, and the prompt sheet is actually allowed to detect and block those. So I think that was very, very good feature. The other important feature of the responsible AI is the groundedness detection. Hallucination continues to be an area of concern, although I think that the models like GPT-4 and the more advanced models have greatly actually addressed those issues. And I believe personally that hallucination is a feature that you just need to know how to control it and how to use it. It's rather than a bug. Um, but the groundedness detection actually now allow people to actually identify that how groundedness it is, and the block they can detect and block the hallucinations. So that's also very, very helpful for all the developers.
Yeah.
um, the other important, just a very quick announcement on the GitHub Copilot for Azure. So GitHub Copilot is extremely popular already, and with this new announcement, which is in private preview right now, but the developers can actually build and deploy and troubleshoot the applications on Azure within the Copilot chat in the Visual Studio or the Visual Studio Code. So I think it's a great help for the developers who want to actually build the applications across the Azure landscape.
No, that's
Okay.
definitely good. I mean, I've been dabbling a little bit with some code development as well, and can really see, where the use of things like GitHub Copilot connected into Azure and this new feature just, you know, expands the capabilities that are able to be done from a development perspective directly within things like Visual Studio Code. So looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So So I know that there were a lot of announcements other than just what you would typically think of core AI, but there is a large, what I'll call intersection between AI and data. So I know that there were a lot of announcements around Microsoft Fabric. Do you want to go into a little bit of what those things are, Shadab?
I think so, because I think the way I see this, Jamie, that the data and AI are really and truly inseparable. The data is really the just the fuel for the AI, and I think the current scheme of things, the AI has become like more all encompassing of the data analytics, BI, and of course the AI. So I think that's how the a lot of stakeholders are same. I would say that probably about 50% of the stakeholders in any organization deal with both the data and AI. And I think there is a cross section, particularly with Microsoft Fabric, what Microsoft announced in the bill, because Microsoft Fabric is not just a data platform. It's not just a data repository. It actually has multiple work loads, including for the data science. For you can also actually create the data gravity within the Microsoft Fabric, so that the AI Studio and others can also integrate. So I think it is really a AI data foundation in my view, right? So that's how I look at the Fabric. And there was a bunch of announcement that came out of the thing. One of the thing was that quickly the real time intelligence, which is an existing established module. Honestly, it has been around, in various forms and avatars like Gusto and the Synapse. Um, but it's really I think the new announcement is really a real-time hub, which is like a single place to ingest, process, and route the events from the diverse sources, and actually able to process them. So I think this has been a little bit area that was still lacking, like more like relying on the push rather than pull. So I think with this real-time hub, it becomes actually easy to consume the messages and process them further.
Right.
Yes, eventually.
I was going to say, I know on that one too, where Fabric collapsed a couple of things together between the existing streaming and then also the data activator. So it brings everything together under one umbrella. Like you said, the real time intelligence also introduced something called One River, which takes the concepts of storing, streaming data. So definitely important as we think about AI to quickly be able to, deliver some insights on that data. So other than that, what else came out with Fabric?
Oh yeah, just a very quick thing on ISV. So I think that's an important. It's like a ecosystem of partners and developers who can also actually use the Microsoft Fabric framework to and use that Microsoft Fabric extensibility framework as an and they can develop their offerings via the Azure Marketplace. It could be data related, BI related, or AI related, and they can actually develop those apps, which can be actually extended through the marketplace, but developed within the Fabric framework. So I think it's becoming a larger and larger ecosystem where it's not just about Microsoft. It's more like a platform where others can also collaborate and participate in it. Databricks is a great example of that as well. Azure Databricks actually Unity Catalog tables now can be accessed directly in the Microsoft Fabric, as well as you can also leverage the vector search capabilities, which is available in Azure Databricks. You can also actually use that also within the Microsoft Fabric. So I think there is a great integration story that is also emerging. So
Yeah,
talking about
I was just saying, I think that's really important. It's the ever expanding partnerships that Microsoft has with companies like Databricks. There was another big announcement as well within Build regarding the expanded partnership with Snowflake. I don't know if you have any information on that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I was actually thrilled to see that partnership expansion because, to be honest, I always thought that okay, Microsoft and Snowflake are truly a hard competitors, but I think this thrilling. It is very promising as well because I think one of the things that I've realized that about Microsoft is that they are really truly partner friendly because I see Azure Databricks, for example, right? It's a unique offering because it's not just Databricks in Azure. It's actually a very specific offering within the Azure. It's Azure Databricks, likewise Azure OpenAI, right? So it's I think partnership integration is so important, and it's thrilling to see that it's turning more like competition, right? I mean, the collaboration is thrilling to see because customers, from a customer's point of view, they can't have multiple platforms. They want that collaboration between the platforms. So if they have a Fabric already, if they have the Snowflake already, how do they make sure that they don't have to do tons of integration work? And I
So,
think from that point of view, this partnership is so important.
so it's kind of like customers want kids to play nice in the playground.
Yes, exactly. But do you know like how does this interoperability even work, Jamie, between the Snowflake and the Fabric?
Yeah, so I mean, and when you look underneath the covers within Fabric, Fabric stores things within Fabric as a Delta Parquet file. So with the Snowflake, they obviously align with Iceberg. So the way that Fabric is going to support, we're going to support both the Delta Lake file format as well as the Iceberg format. But there's then a mechanism that will enable, let's say, another company to be able to use and interchange that data, directly, and that's through the Apache X tables. So basically, the Apache X table will allow for the translation within OneLake to be able to enable, somebody that's using uh, you know, Snowflake or somebody that's using Databricks to be able to speak to and from. So to me, this really opens up capabilities that go far beyond just Fabric. It'll allow, again, kind of funny saying it, but like the kids in the playground to be able to act well and cooperate with each other. So in essence, it's those underlying technologies that enable that.
And the other promising aspect of this is also, Jamie, that if your data is in, let's say, Snowflake, right, or in the Fabric, you can access across. But then also, if your data is in Snowflake, that could also be made available to be used within Azure AI Studio, the Power Platform, or a Microsoft 365, or the core. I think that's an amazing thing because from an AI development point of view, you can actually use all that data even though that does not exist within the Fabric or local Microsoft other repositories, but it is sitting within the Snowflake. So I think this is really really actually promising for the corporates who want to leverage the data wherever it is.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, it opens up the avenue. The one thing I do want to stress, so I think this might get overlooked or not get picked up, is that the Snowflake data doesn't leave Snowflake. And that's the great part of this, is that you don't want to duplicate data all over your quote unquote data estate. If you want to have it once, whether or not that's in Snowflake or Databricks or Fabric directly, the great thing about Fabric is it stitches all that together so that you could use it, like you said, through something like Azure AI Studio or Power Platform. So that's the great thing. You're not duplicating data, in this scenario.
Yep, awesome. The other important thing, I think this was in the news, Mistral, right? So Mistral actually released Codestral, which is their model more fine-tuned for the coding. I think the good thing about that is that it supports actually more than 80 programming languages, including some of the obscure ones, right? Not very commonly used like Swift, etc. Even Fortran. Do you remember Fortran?
Yeah.
So it even actually supports that. It's a 22 billion parameter open weight model. But here's an interesting thing about that, Jamie. It was actually released under a little bit different model. So generally, the Mistral is the open source company. They have actually allowed all the models to be used howsoever you want it in a commercial fashion as well. But they came up with this new license term called non-production license, which means that you can use it for all your research and purpose. But if you have to, let's say, commercialize it, you're building the application, etc., so you need to have a different arrangement. So that I think it's a balance between providing the commitment to the open source community as well as still, however, look after the business aspects of it, because honestly, AI is expensive. The all the research, and that's why we have seen the whole thing about how OpenAI really had to become more of a closed AI, honestly, because it's just not sustainable. It's just billions of dollars of
Oh,
expenses.
it costs a lot to train a model.
Exactly. So, I agree. And I think these companies, they do need to find a sustainable way to sustain themselves. And I think non-production license is a good start from Mistral as well. If people find the value in it and they want to use it, then but if you're making a ton of money out of this, I think that some of that share needs to go to some of these companies as well who are trying to provide these model for free and the open source. And that is why I also like the news about tons of these media collaboration that OpenAI has been doing, Jamie, with the News Corp or Reddit,
Mhm.
or even Stack Overflow, right? So Stack Overflow is also, and some interesting stuff going on with the Stack Overflow. Now that actually the Stack Overflow content is being used, and they have a deal with the OpenAI. The thing is that some of the users are resisting. They have started deleting their posts. They don't want it to be used. And
Yeah,
that
and
brings another important aspect to discuss: who owns
yeah,
the
and
content?
right, exactly, and we touched upon that on an episode or two ago regarding a lot of those partnerships. But like you said, it's about who owns the content, and I think that's the more fundamental part of these, whether or not you want to call them questions, or fundamental part of these relationships between whether it's OpenAI and fill in the blank. But um, yeah, that's super important because it's now like, whose content is it? Do I get paid for that content?
Exactly, and I think it's going to be another important discourse that's going to emerge. But yeah, I think it's good to see some of those evolution of the different models, commercial agreement, etc. But everybody needs to find a way to sustain. Another thing, Jamie, that that announcement also came, even though as part of the build, but also outside the build was a Khanmigo for the teachers. And this is actually thrilling because Khan Academy, right, the founder Sal Khan, he is also actually launched his book AI for Education. It's a good book that I'm actually eagerly waiting to get hands on, and I want to read about it. But Khanmigo is actually a assistant app which is designed for the teachers, because teachers have tons of workload, right? They have to design the plan, they have to plan the sessions, they have to create the lesson hooks, they have to do a lot of administrative work as well, and it takes a lot of time. And they are truly interested in keeping the students hooked. And I think this app, Funmigo, it allows that. It uses, by the way, it is also actually made freely available because of the sponsorship between Microsoft and the Khan Academy. So it is freely available to all the educators within US, and it is built on, by the way, using the Phi 3 family, the SLM. So, and another important aspect that I found was useful is that it doesn't necessarily require even the prompting. So it's like based on the drop downs and the values you can choose. You don't have to necessarily put a prompt to get the right answer, because sometimes, let's admit, right, prompt engineering itself can be a little bit of hurdle for people who don't know how to use the prompt. So it also actually you can use. So it's pretty friendly app designed for teachers to use the AI to actually impart the value to their students. So it is something exciting as well. And they use the, by the way, fine tuning you talked about in the beginning, right? So this is a good example where they use the fine tuning, because they created synthetic data to actually, like, for example, a lot of data about the students asking the questions, for example, on the math problems, and they use that synthetic data to train this, and that is being used in this app as well.
Interesting. Well, I'll have to take a look at it. It's the first time I even heard about it. So it's good news for me.
Yeah, so that was actually good. And the last thing, Jamie, that I think couple of things I wanted to also talk about is that we talk about AI a lot in terms of the all the happenings, etc. But I also wanted to talk about how AI is being used in the real world, because what happens is that it requires imagination of, if let's say some corporates or company or industry is using AI in a certain way, that can inspire the other industry or other company to actually use also in the similar manner, because people are still trying to explore, because there are so many different ways in that it can be used. So I think going forward, occasionally we will also talk about different AI, the aspects of AI being used in the corporate, in the real life, in the world. We will talk about some apps. We will talk about some of the use cases. Of course, the public, etc., across the globe. And one such thing that I came across was this Autobiographer app. Okay, and this app is actually now using the Gen AI, essentially using this app, and it is not just for big people, celebrities like you, but it is for people, common people like me, who don't, who are not, but we want to actually create the memories, right? We want to create the narratives. We want to create, preserve the family heirlooms, the stories, and things like that. And using this, you can actually speak and organize these conversations into prose. You can create the personalized autobiography. You can export those stories as PDF. You can create the keepsakes, memorabilia, and then you can uh, leave those
Yeah.
memories behind for your families.
It sounds interesting. I guess my question to you: have you tried it? Have you done it?
No, no, not yet actually, because there is a fee to it. Right now, it's about $200 per year. So but this is something, honestly, I found it very useful. The reason being because I was doing something of sort myself on this line, right? So I'm been trying to, like, creating a repository of narratives of my life, my parents, my ancestors, right? Whatever I've heard, because we don't have those like the that kind of life, but those memories are special for my own family, for myself. So I want to preserve those, and I find that this is probably most likely the one that I'm going to actually use as well. um
We'll have
so
to
yeah.
we'll have to do another episode at some point on your experiences with that tool and some of your own output. So I'm intrigued. So
Yeah, it is going to be a good one. And one last thing, I find this use case also actually very inspiring. This is a corporate, this is a public case study by Microsoft, so it is available on the customer transformation study. You can find those links in the show notes. This is actually about the company CarMax, right? So CarMax actually they have been around since '93. They have sold more than 11 million vehicles, and at any point of time they have like 45,000 cars available on their website. Now here's the thing: when you buy a car, right, whenever you and I we bought a car, some of the things that we do research. It is a most second most important, or the second biggest purchase that we do after the home. We do research. And how do we do the research? We read about all the history, the safety, and the features, and try to match that with our requirement. But we also want to know how the others have used it, what reviews have they left behind, right? So the customer reviews are always, the kind of peer customer reviews are extremely important. but they could be sometimes very overwhelming. And CarMax understand that, okay, there is a need for those reviews to be provided so that customers can make a better decision and much faster. So what they started doing is they started actually playing with the large language models to create a one or two sentence summary of the important customer reviews left for a particular brand of the car. And that becomes much easier for users to consume and use them. They also use these models to create the section content about what are the main features, so that they can even vary the length, right? Okay, give us something 100 words or 200 words or 500 words. Imagine the power of the large language model. It's a fantastic, actually, case in point for anything like that: product summary, reviews, customer review. I think those things are very well suited to be used by the large language models. And this was very important because I think they were trying to do it like for the generate the customer review summaries for 5,000 car pages. And with what they were doing, their current process, it would have taken them 11 years to actually do that at that pace and with that kind of efforts that were available. But with this, using the Azure OpenAI service, they were actually able to accomplish that in just a few months. And the editorial review, because of course it goes through the editorial review as well on their side, and they had a more than 80% approval rate from whatever was created by the large language model. So I think it is fascinating. I think it's a great, inspiring case study about how the customers can use, because a lot of corporates have products, a lot of corporates have reviews, a lot of products have product description, and it can be very helpful to use in a similar manner.
Sounds good. Sounds, certainly an intriguing case study, use case, for how customers are actually using it. So
Yeah, it is good. And lastly, I would say that we will invite our audience to actually leave in the comment behind their own experience playing with the Gen AI or traditional AI, and leave their story behind. And if they want us to cover some of their own experiences in our episode, or leave any question behind that you want us to answer as well. Other than that, thank you so much for listening.
yeah, likewise. Thank you everyone for listening in. And just as a reminder, we have a ton of show notes. Don't forget to go take a look at those various different notes, because they provide links to a lot of the different stories and or announcements that we had mentioned during the episode. So again, thanks again. Look forward to next time chatting with you, Shadab.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Bye, Jimmy.
Bye.